Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
If you live to age 100, will your retirement savings last as long as you do? There's a big expense that many people forget to include when they're doing the math on how long their money will last. And Philip Statler will tell you what that is here in just a moment. Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and going to have a great conversation starting us off today, talking a little bit about longevity. So I hope you're ready, Philip. Welcome back. I hope you're doing great today.
Hey, we are today, Jen. You know, longevity is a big topic because it just seems like more and more people are living longer and longer. And so it's becoming a more, I won't say necessarily popular topic, but it's an important topic we need to discuss.
Yeah, it's absolutely something that's really relevant. And you know, I see this in my own family as well. We'll talk a little bit about that as we dive into this topic today. Here's the thing, and just to kind of get our mindset in the right place for this, Philip, most of us do like the idea of living a long and healthy life, right? I mean, that sounds good, but how do you talk to people about the financial risk associated with longevity?
Well, yeah, and you said something there that I think we need to point out, right? Living a long and healthy life. People don't want to live a long life if it's not a healthy life.
Yeah.
And the same really and truly applies when it comes to longevity risk, right? If we, I know my grandmother lived to be 100. And so, and that was, 20 years ago, right?
Wow.
So it's one of those things where if you think about it, you got to have the funding to be able to live that well. You can live that long anyway, but you need to have the funding to make sure you enjoy, that longevity in your life. And so that's why there's a huge financial risk when it comes to longevity, because we got to have enough to get us through the rest of our lives.
That's right. I mean, when you think about the financial side, it's one thing to live a long time, but then it's decades of all sorts of expenses. There truly is a cost to living a long time. And that's really our goal, is to talk about that today. And, you mentioned your grandmother living to age 100. And I don't know how long your grandfather lived, but perhaps not quite as long as your grandmother. I want to talk a little bit about a trend here. Right now, more than 100,000 people are 100 years old. 78% of them are women. And that is really interesting. As a retirement planner, Philip, what does that stat tell you, or what does that mean to you?
So when I look at that, and you're right. I mean, that's a stat that people need to realize is true. I mean, we always think about women living longer than men, but here we can see it statistically what that looks like. When you're looking at a married couple, and you're looking at longevity, it's important to consider Social Security. I mean, I look at Social Security differently than a lot of people do. People look at it as an income base. I look at it as planning for this remaining spouse. A lot of times when people start looking at Social Security, when should I take it? Well, let's talk about what the income looks like today, but more importantly, let's look at it when, the higher earning or the husband passes away. What does it mean to the remaining spouse? And we don't think about that. People don't realize that part of Social Security. And so we take that into consideration, as well as just the whole planning. When I run my numbers, I run to age 100.
Wow. People
will say all the time, well, I don't plan on living that long. Yeah, but statistically, between you and your wife, there's a good chance one of you will get really close.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to plan for that scenario and be prepared for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is one of those things that it can actually be kind of tough for me to talk about, because the reality is, on my mom's side, the norm wasn't true. My grandpa outlived my grandma, and my dad is still living and my mom is not. So I recognize that there are situations where it doesn't follow the trend. But on my dad's side of the family, my grandma is in her 90s and still living at home and still doing really well. A little hard of hearing, but she's healthy.
Well,
She's,
so am I.
yeah, not a huge surprise there. So, I do want to be sensitive. I know there are situations that are not following these statistical norms, but the reality is, if most of the time it's the wife that outlives the husband, the woman who outlives the man, it's important for everybody to be on the same page with the finances, because if the husband has been the one handling all the financial decisions and he is statistically more likely to pass away first, that's going to leave her in a state of confusion or not really knowing what to do. So I imagine, Philip, that's kind of an important part of the conversations you have with people, is just making sure everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows what's going on with the money, so you're not having to start from square one with somebody when their spouse passes away.
Absolutely, Jen. I can't tell you the number of folks over the last 10 years that have come into me for that specific reason.
Yeah. Okay.
If the husband says, look, I take care of everything. If something happens to me, my wife will need help.
Yeah. And
I trust you to take care of her and help her. And so that was a huge deal. And so in a lot of those cases, within a year or two, the husband passed away and we took over and made sure that the spouse was taken care of, the income didn't stop. Those type of situations, they happen. And that's why it's so important, though, folks, that you have some kind of income plan in place. And that's where I developed the core retirement design to help people measure their risk, look at the tax aspects of retirement to make sure that they're paying the least amount of taxes possible throughout their lifetime, and then making sure they have a reliable income plan in place. That's our core retirement design. Give me a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement analysis. That number again, 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. I am Jen Rezac alongside. And, I know no one's guaranteed, but when you look at the fact that people are living longer these days, and retirement in general just looks different today, Philip, than it did, decades ago. For people who think they might live to 95, 100 years old, is there a magic number they need to try to save for that long of a retirement? How do we approach saving when we're talking about this potential length of our retirement?
Again, I don't think we look. I think we look at it the same way we always look at it, right? We don't look at it as, what do I need to have saved up? Our stance and philosophy has always been, what am I going to have to spend? Mm-hmm. Okay. What does my spending look like? Because if I know what the spending looks like, I can work backwards to where I need to be, and I can tell you if you are there or you're not there yet. Mm-hmm. And so that really, from that standpoint, that doesn't change, right? We just have to project out those expenses further. We have to add more inflation into the picture, but we still need to focus on that age 100. Yeah. Do we have enough to get us there at our current spending rate? Or do we need more, or do we need to spend less? I mean, those are the hard questions we have to ask sometimes, Jen.
And when we're talking about some of those expenses and talking about the possibility of living a very long time, some analysts say there is a significant retirement expense that most people forget about. They're thinking about housing, they're thinking about health care and medical expenses. But there's another big one that we want to be mindful of when we're talking about living a very long time, right? Tell us about this one.
So taxes. I mean, most people forget about what taxes are going to take out of their retirement. And folks, listen, we are in the lowest tax brackets I believe any of us will ever see again. What does that mean? That means that taxes are going to go up. And so we have to plan properly for what that looks like, and making sure that we put together a plan that allows us to pay the least amount of taxes throughout your lifetime, which hey, if you're 65, that could be 35 years, and then it goes to your family. And so we want to pay the least amount of taxes possible. And again, that's part of our core retirement design, is to design that retirement plan that takes those things into consideration.
Talk about some of the strategies that could help us reduce that tax bill in retirement. If we're talking about living a long time, we can't fully avoid taxes, but there are some things we can do to potentially preserve more of our money from paying higher taxes, right?
There are. If you're already retired, if you're in the 10 or 12% tax bracket, you've got some maneuverability to start doing some Roth IRA conversions, to take some money out and convert it to a Roth, which then grows tax free, or taking those contributions and pulling out money out of your IRAs and doing something different with them that may provide you with some tax free income down the road. Those are all areas that we explore in our core retirement design, in that tax module, where we're trying to pay the least amount of taxes possible, because taxes are going to go up. I mean, we already know in 2026, without some miracle, taxes will automatically go up, and we're going to be in higher tax brackets. And I'm trying to get people prepared for that, and making sure that they are doing all they can today to lessen those taxes down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. How can having a written retirement income strategy help us avoid some of these risks? Things like paying too much in taxes, or even thinking back to the spending we were talking about earlier, spending down our savings too quickly. How can having a written retirement income strategy help?
Well, I think it helps because we then have a plan. We have a map to follow. Now, is it perfect? No, but we can make adjustments annually if we need to see where we are. But the biggest thing is we have a game plan. We have a map to follow. That's why I developed the core retirement design, to put those things into place so we have a written plan to follow. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement analysis. Again, that's 863-285-3815. Folks, don't put it off. It's 30 minutes. We'll sit on the phone. We'll walk through your circumstances. We'll see if you are on the right path to the retirement you dreamed of. If not, I'm going to tell you, here's some things you can do to improve your current circumstances. Again, give me a call at 863-285-3815 for your core retirement analysis.
That number one more time, 863-285-3815. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. More insights from Philip are coming up next. Stay with us.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. There are so many moving parts when it comes to preparing for retirement. You might be thinking things like, when do I take Social Security? What might cause me to accidentally trigger higher taxes? What if I make a wrong move with my retirement savings? There are so many decisions that can impact each other. And we've talked before about how retirement, you can call it a puzzle, or even think about one of those puzzle cubes where you move everything to get everything lined up on one side and then you mess everything up on the other side. We can kind of do that with our finances, right?
Yeah, we really can. And that's if we're not focused and paying attention, we think we're doing one thing okay. And then the next thing we know, it's got us off course someplace else, or it's messed up another part of the plan. Yeah. And that's where I always tell my clients, look, before you do anything, call me and let's make sure that we're doing things the right way. We're taking money from the right places at the right time to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, it's one of those things that I think is important. And it's one of the things that we encourage our clients to do is, hey, we want to be here to not just help you take care of your finances, but we want to help you walk through the retirement process and be a big help in that whole process too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some examples of retirement decisions that you make a decision here and it might impact another area of your plan. Can you walk us through just so we can, kind of get our heads around how this plays out?
So there's a couple that really come to mind. One of them, and it can be a big one in more ways than one, but one of them is taking your Social Security could actually push you into a higher tax bracket, right? Taking your Social Security while you're still working, while you're taking money out for distributions, it could push you into a higher tax bracket unexpectedly. Let me add another one to that, kind of similar to that, is that people retire and they want to pay something off, right? Which makes a lot of sense, right? Because you want to go into retirement debt-free as possible. And so they take a big chunk out of their 401k to pay that off. Now, all of a sudden, they're in a higher tax bracket. They've messed up their Medicare Part B premium. All kinds of things can happen if you're not prepared. Another area is missing your required minimum distribution. That can trigger some tax penalties from Uncle Sam. Another big one that we try to help clients navigate away from, but if you don't have somebody watching your back and helping you out, this can be a problem. If you take too much out of your retirement savings, it can cause you to spend down too fast and run out of money before you run out of retirement. So those are some key areas that turning that puzzle cube on one side, thinking, oh, hey, this looks good over here, can mess something else up on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And it happens to the best of us. It's easy to do. Talk about the key pieces of a retirement income strategy in general. When we are talking about putting together a plan, let's just back up and define what we mean by that when we're talking about having that plan for our retirement income.
So for us, Statler Financial, having that plan in place, we have our retirement income plan as part of our core retirement design is really that, to create the pathway of where your income's going to come from and how long it's going to last in each of those buckets. We push that out there when it comes to that. We want to make sure that folks have a certain amount of money that is absolutely in a savings account available to them. All they have to do is transfer it to their checking account and it's right there, right? Folks need that amount of money, some amount of money there for those emergencies. Second, we need preservation money and we need risk buckets. So we need both in order to develop the income we're going to need in retirement. And we use all those tools in order to kind of piece together that income plan for folks. And again, that's all part of why I created the core retirement design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That number is 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. I am Jen Rezac alongside. I want to talk about Social Security as one of the parts here, one of the pieces to our retirement income puzzle. How do you talk to people about this? Help someone decide when it might make sense for them to go ahead and file or, coordinate with their spouse on claiming their benefits. How do you talk to people about that?
Well, we look at, because it can be one of the big pieces in the puzzle, right, is what does Social Security look like for folks? It is part of our income planning process to have folks bring us their Social Security statement, which will show us, hey, if I retire at 62, 67, 70, what are those values are going to be? And it allows us then to build in some what ifs. What if I waited till I took Social Security at 65, or I waited till I was 67? And we just walk through that process of kind of looking at the options and then sitting back down with folks and say, okay, look, here's what we've got. Here's what I believe makes the most sense. Here, what do you think makes the most sense? It's a conversation, Jen. It's a back and forth as we look at where they need to be in taking their Social Security. Unfortunately, a lot of folks have made that decision before they come see me, and it's too late to fix it. That's what I would caution folks about.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's one of those areas, again, where I think it just speaks to the need for guidance on all of this, because, as you said, there can be a point when it's too late and you can't undo it. Sometimes you can take back a decision on Social Security, but it's limited before it's really locked in. What do we need to know about other common sources of retirement income, things other than Social Security, and how they fit in that puzzle?
Well, way back when, we had the three-legged stool where Social Security was a third, your pension would be a third, and then you, as the saver, would contribute a third to your retirement income. And we know that for a lot of folks out there now, pensions just don't exist. You're on your own. So Social Security, it has become a bigger and bigger part of that income planning process. And so allowing folks to let it grow to the maximum amount possible has become even a bigger thing that we need to emphasize to folks that, drawing early is not always the best thing. Mm-hmm. And so, because we don't have pensions now, so now it's on you to create your own pension. And that is really what our income planning process does for folks. It helps them fill that gap between Social Security and what they're going to need in retirement.
So, Philip, what do we need to know here? There are just so many generic rules of thumb when it comes to retirement planning. You think about so many things that we've probably come across over the years. How do you know what makes the most sense? I think that's the big question a lot of people are wondering when it comes to all the information that's out there. People who are trying to search for this stuff on their own. How do you know what does make the most sense?
Rather than folks trying to rely on some rule of thumb that seems to change all the time, right? It used to be 4%, then it was 2.3, and now it's some other number, right? We don't want to rely on that. We don't want to miss, that target. So it makes sense for you to get a customized advice based on your dreams and your goals and what you want retirement to look like for you. We have a process for helping you create that income strategy, and we start with what we call our core retirement analysis. If you're listening to me right now and you don't have an income strategy, I want to invite you to give us a call so that we can help you through that process. We can look at budgets. How much are you going to need in retirement to have what you've always dreamed of? We want to uncover some things for you like risk, threats to your retirement, including things like inflation, stock market volatility, tax increases that folks don't really think about all the time, and then skyrocketing healthcare costs. We'll learn about the options for potentially generating income in retirement and learn about ways to keep your current standard of living in retirement, even as costs continue to creep up. It's a complimentary phone call for you and I to discuss your current situation, for you to ask questions to determine if you're on the right path to get to where you want to go. It's our core retirement analysis. All you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement income analysis. Folks, it's that easy. 30 minutes, we're here, answer your questions, and then look to see what the next steps might be to make sure that you can have the retirement you always dreamed of. We want you to have big wins. We want you to do what you want to do in retirement. And that's why I developed the core retirement design. Again, giving us the possibility of not outliving your money. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
That number one more time, 863-285-3815. As we're talking today with Philip Statler of Statler Financial Services, there are so many moving parts to your retirement, and a move in one area of your finances can impact another area of your retirement plan. It's kind of like trying to solve a puzzle. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for information about tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why Statler Financial Services was started. Philip wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement. Statler Financial is more than just convenient, they're knowledgeable and experienced. To set up a meeting with Philip Statler and his team to talk about your retirement plan, all of it, call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, one stop for a wealth of retirement solutions. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler and co-host Jen Rezac.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, and talking today about the fact that there are so many moving parts when it comes to preparing for retirement, so many decisions that can impact each other. And the analogy we've made, Philip, is retirement planning is almost like trying to figure out a puzzle cube, and we want to try to address all these different sides of it without messing up something else in another area of our plan.
We want it to come out right?
Yes,
we want all
right.
the problems to be the same color, just like it's supposed to be, and that's challenging, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is a challenge, and it's frustrating for people. And sometimes we can't even fully see it. And I think that's one of the things that, if you're playing a game or playing with a puzzle cube, you see immediately when you make a move that impacts something else. When we're talking about financial decisions, sometimes it takes a long time before we truly see the impact and how it's impacted somewhere else. So I think that's the other piece of this that makes people feel a little frustrated and a little overwhelmed. I want to keep talking about some of these different areas here for people who are taking Social Security. And then they also have to start taking required minimum distributions. The impact can be what has been called the tax torpedo. That's what some financial analysts call this. How can we help keep, from accidentally triggering higher taxes that we're going to have to pay in retirement? This is something that people, I think, have a lot of questions about.
Well, it takes some planning, and it takes some planning before you get to that required minimum distribution age, right? Because once you get there, the required minimum distribution is what it is, and it's going to get added to your income, and you're going to have to pay the tax on that, and it's going to cause your Social Security to be taxable, which a lot of folks don't really realize that their Social Security may in fact become taxable income to them. Doesn't have to, but a lot of folks, I'm going to say most folks, end up paying tax on their Social Security. So it takes some pre-planning ahead of time, right? What can we do? Can we do some Roth conversions to get that money out of the IRA to the Roth IRA? Yeah, granted, we're going to have to pay some taxes, but now we can control the amount of taxes we're going to have to pay in that conversion process. The other thing that folks can do in there, and we may talk about this a little later, is, once you hit that 70 and a half age, now I can use my IRA for my charitable donations. And then it bypasses us having to pay tax on that money. So there are some key things that can be done. You just need to know what they are and how to implement them. And that's what we do.
Yeah, and I think, again, I know I said this earlier, but really I think speaks to the need for having that guidance when it comes to the financial decisions that you're making. When it comes to things like taxes, Philip, I think this is an important point for people to understand. Talk about how we can potentially have more control over the taxes that we pay in retirement based on how we take income from our retirement accounts. And I know, and of course, talking about those federal income taxes here, that's certainly something that we don't want to overlook as we get into retirement.
Well, that's right. And so so often people don't really calculate the tax impact of what they do. They want to buy a new car. I'm going to take $40,000 out of my IRA. I'm going to go buy my car.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you don't have any debt, but now guess what? You're going to owe Uncle Sam a chunk of money because that's the way you took it out.
Right.
And so we're here to help folks determine what is really the best way to go buy that car. And maybe you have multiple buckets of money that you could take money out of. And so it's putting together that right response to determine where money needs to come from to make that large purchase.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, Mr. Smith's going to get blindsided when he files his tax return and he owes, $8,000, $9,000 in taxes because of what he took out of his IRA. It's just being cognizant of the tax impact. Ed Slott always says that, there's a mortgage on your IRA to the IRS. You don't own it all. When you take money out, you got to give some to your partner, Uncle Sam. And so, being cognizant will go a long way in helping to keep you out of the tax man's pocket. So, and that's all part of our core retirement design. That's what we're here to help folks do, is to help them through these whole processes, not just financial. We're here as retirement advisors, helping them with all things dealing with retirement, because there's a lot of things other than just their investments and their finances that have to be dealt with in retirement. And that's what we're here for. And that's what the core retirement design really does. Folks, give us a call at 863-285-3815. That number one more time is 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. And as we talk a little bit about that, that was a good example, Philip, when you talk about maybe someone takes a certain amount out of their retirement accounts for a purchase because they don't want to go into debt. And then there is an income tax impact in another area where there could potentially be an impact. I think we've talked about this before on the show. When you talk about that income that you have coming in, I mean, sometimes that can impact like your Medicare and some of those surcharges on your premiums. So that's just another area, another layer, I guess, to that, aside from the straight up income taxes that you might owe on a purchase like that.
It does. And let me tell you another area that it will impact if you are not on Medicare, because so many people are retiring at 62 or 60. What they don't think about is the Affordable Care Act on their health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That is income based. The credit you receive against that is income based. And so now all of a sudden you take a huge amount out of your IRA, and now you have to pay back the entire healthcare credit that you received throughout the year. You got to pay it back all April 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, when that happens, which I've unfortunately seen it happen a couple times, because people didn't come talk to me before they took their money out, they end up with a ginormous tax bill.
Yeah.
Because of it. And there's nothing you can do. So, if you're not on Medicare, there's even a bigger thing, because that threshold, Jen, is much lower than the Medicare threshold.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's like for joint returns, like, don't hold me to it, but like 68,000,
Yeah.
less than 70,000 joint income. Boom, you're over. You get no credit. It can be disastrous.
Wow. Yeah. So again, just so many different impacts to think about. So how do you talk to people, or how can you help people figure out ways to take money out of their retirement accounts for income, or structure their finances in a way so they are able to, do the things that they want to do, but without being just totally piled on with things like taxes and fees and penalties and that type of thing?
Well, I think that one is coming up with a realistic number for what they need to draw out of their accounts.
Okay.
Don't come in and undercut it, and then all of a sudden you need a big chunk, right, for something. It's having that income plan in place that's truly going to meet your needs, and then living within that budget, right? And then when those things come up that you need extra money for, then it's a matter of, hey, let's sit down and determine the best way to accomplish that purchase.
Mm.
And don't just say, I need $50,000 out of my IRA. Why? Is that the best place to take it from?
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know if it is or not. They just, all they're focusing on is the purchase, right?
Sure.
And so it's having that relationship of being able to have that conversation of what needs to happen. How can I help you get what you want the most tax effective way and the tax efficient way possible? That's all part of our process and part of helping our clients.
Talk a little bit about this when it comes to creating that strategy for withdrawing income from our retirement savings, and just some of the planning types of conversations that you might have when you're helping people start to put all of this together.
So first off, we have folks actually look at how much do they need, a realistic number, right? Let's look at your last year's worth of expenses. How much are you spending? And what does that look like going forward? Because people will say, well, I'm getting ready to retire, so things are going to change. Well, what's going to change? And let's add and subtract. I'm going to travel more. I'm going to cruise more, but I'm not going to have this or that expense anymore either.
Uh-huh.
And so it's really coming up with, what do you need? And then I go to work to figure out, how can we get there? Can we get there? Now, sometimes I have to be the disappointing person, right? That come in and says, look, I want to help you, but it won't work.
Yeah.
Right. What you're trying to accomplish will not work. And I've had to have that conversation the last couple of months with a couple folks that have come in that just say, look, what you're doing is not going to work long term. And, this will, so you need to go back and figure out how you can live within this means so that you don't run out of money. You're too young to try to do this. You need to live within some restraint. And that's a tough conversation, but you got to be willing to do it, because you're looking out for the client and what's in their best interest. And that's what you look at, is what are the missteps people make is buying something they really don't need, or taking the money out from the wrong place at the wrong time are probably the two biggest missteps I've seen that causes them a lot of pain when it comes to Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
And those are the things we want to keep away from.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just so many moving parts when it comes to preparing for retirement. And as we've been discussing here over the past couple segments of the show, a lot of our financial decisions can impact other parts of our retirement strategy. And it's just important that we recognize that and we get the right guidance to prevent some of those missteps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Going into retirement, you don't want to make a misstep with your retirement savings. And so we have that process to help you create the income strategy. And we start with a simple phone call, our core retirement analysis call. Look, if you're listening to me right now and you don't have an income strategy, I invite you to give us a call. Give us 30 minutes of your time. We'll answer whatever questions you have. We'll make sure that you're heading down the right path for the retirement you always dreamed of. We'll help you think of the things that you need to be looking at and tell you what the next steps are that you need to progress towards your retirement. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
That number one more time, 863-285-3815. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. More insights coming up on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Philip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Sounds like the mailman's here.
It's time to answer questions from the Statler Financial Mailbag.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services here in Sebring. He is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year. And Philip gets questions each and every week about all things retirement. So we're going to open up our mailbag. We're going to go over some common retirement questions. We have a really good collection of questions. We figure you probably have some pretty similar questions as well. So hopefully you learn a little something from these folks who have some of these questions. And Philip, let's get into it. First question comes from Gary, who is from Wauchula, who's been looking forward to retirement for years, but now that he's less than 2 years away from his target retirement date, he's starting to panic a little bit. And Gary wants to know if this is normal. Do other people get cold feet about retirement? How do I shake this off so I can enjoy myself? Boy, isn't that the way?
Yeah, Gary, that's it's not unusual to have that happen. I mean, I get people that the closer they get, the more real it becomes, the more nervous they get, and we have to just sit down and reassure them that that's why we have a plan in place. That's why we've done the planning. We've done the hard work to make sure that everything's going to, plan the way that we've got it put in the plan. And so, that's what it is. Now, I'll just tell you that I have some folks that, as the closer they get, because they didn't actually write it down, they do keep pushing it back a little bit. And finally, though, something happens and they say, okay, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And they get that relief once they make that decision to, okay, this is my last day, and move forward because they have a plan in place, so they know where their income's coming from and how that's going to flow.
Mm-hmm.
The other case, just for an example, I have a couple of clients that, we put together the plan and they've come in and said, you know what, I'm not going to make it to that date. I'm retiring.
We're done. We're out of here.
We're done. And that's why we have a plan, because that plan takes those things into consideration. And we know, hey, if we decide to retire a little early, this is what we're going to do. Plop that plan into place and we're ready to go.
Well, and I get cold feet. I get even when we're going on a vacation, right before I get on the plane, I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. Why am I even messing with this? I don't even know if I planned it well enough. And then I have a great time when I go. I mean, I think we get cold feet so many times with so many little things. So, of course, with something as big as your retirement, I can't take a vacation without wanting to back out at the last minute.
It's change, right? We don't like change. And so that's a change in our whole situation. So that's obviously going to...
Makes perfect sense.
Some issue. Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Great question, though, Gary. We appreciate you sending that in. Next up is Patrick from Lake Placid, who has some friends who are struggling. This other couple that they know, the husband was in a debilitating car wreck, and they were not prepared to live on the wife's paycheck. They still don't know if this friend is going to recover enough to work again, but this has Patrick and his wife wanting to make sure that they would be okay if something similar happens to one of them. They just want to know, how do they make sure? Where do they get started?
So a couple of things I would say there, because that's there's a lot in that question.
Yeah.
I think you start with preparing a net worth statement for yourself right now and determining, how much do you have on the liability side? And then let's look at the income. Where's the income coming from? And this is a case where we don't think about it, and we probably don't talk about it much on the show at all, really, is disability insurance.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where things like having a disability can pay off, and kind of like long-term care insurance. We don't want to think about it, but it's out there. It's something we need to be planning for. And this is no different. We need to have a plan in place, whether that's having enough assets to survive. And how do I look at it? I look at it this way. We build our plans so that we could cut off one person's income and say, okay, how would that work? What would happen? What ifs?
Yeah.
Right? We can walk through some of those scenarios and determine, what's going to happen. What are we going to have to do to make sure that we could survive? And that's just part of the process.
Right. And those are tough things to think about. But the reality is, Philip, none of us is promised tomorrow. And I think we all know someone, or we've experienced ourselves, where everything changes in the blink of an eye. One phone call and everything that you thought you had planned is different. And we just have to face that fact, which isn't a lot of fun sometimes, but gosh, how much better is it to have the money side taken care of if you do have one of these catastrophic incidents, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, not just that, but I mean, you have a spouse that passes away.
Yeah.
That's so, that changes the dynamic totally. And what do we do? How do we do that? That's why we build out our plan so that we can do what ifs. Okay. Mm-hmm. What if John dies in year 5 of retirement? What's going to happen? And I think that's important.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do one more. Beth, also here in Sebring. Beth's oldest daughter is looking at some college loans, and she has asked about co-signing. Would like mom and dad to co-sign. What are some things to consider before Beth signs on the dotted line? Yeah,
I have a lot of caution to kind of throw out there for this question, Jen, as I look at that. Beth, don't just think twice, think 3 or 4 times before doing that. I unfortunately have some real life experience with this issue. I've had grandchildren that had grandparents co-sign on loans, student loans, and they got, the degree they were seeking at a private school, which was astronomically expensive. She wasn't going to make $30,000 or $40,000 a year, and when she graduated, she had $150,000 in student loans. So things like that are concerning to me. So number one, I would never, ever recommend co-signing on a student loan. There's other avenues out there. I mean, it's just, you get to a point and you have to look out for your retirement. And don't get me wrong, I understand it's your kid. We want to get them through college. But a lot of times I see kids that they're going to a school that's expensive. They don't know what they want to do.
Taking that meandering route to their major.
Yeah. or they pick a job that isn't going to make $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me of an article I read not too long ago about Columbia University, that high price school. Kids are graduating there with music degrees and social service degrees with $200,000 in student loan debt.
Gosh.
And the most they're ever going to make in the jobs they've chosen is $50,000 a year.
Gosh, how do you do that? Oh,
wow. You can't. It's just problematic. That's a whole nother issue that we're dealing with in our country. Bottom line is that you've got to stay true to your goals of getting to retirement, and not to say that they would default, but statistically speaking, in today's world, student loans are just a problem, and you don't want your assets hanging on the line for that student loan debt. So I would just caution you to stay away from that and focus on your retirement. That's what's going to be important to you down the road. Folks, listen, there's a lot of questions that we can answer. There's a lot of things that go into planning for your retirement, but it really truly starts with risk. Knowing the risk you have in your portfolio, knowing the risk to your income that you might have out there. It's all about risk and making sure that you don't have too much as you head into retirement. Let me help answer those questions for you. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Give us a call, schedule your financial x-ray, and let us stress test your current portfolio. 863-285-3815.
You've been listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. That's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to tune in again next week for more insights from Philip. I'm Jen Rezac. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great week.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for information about tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why Statler Financial Services was started. Philip wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement. Statler Financial is more than just convenient, they're knowledgeable and experienced. To set up a meeting with Philip Statler and his team to talk about your retirement plan, all of it, call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, one stop for a wealth of retirement solutions. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.